prisoners are more numerate than we expected and more numerate than literate, and that seems to be the opposite to the general population. And we can only speculate as to why that might be. Might have something to do with their career choice. Yeah. Be interesting to look over time whether that changes. The biggest barrier we've identified to prisoners achieving successfully in vocational training is reading comprehension and that critical thinking and that problem solving, and they all kind of blend in together. And we don't know what the answer is to solving that yet, but we're very interested in finding out more because it's very consistent. There's some research done, a master's thesis was done around youth offending in our prisons in 2009, and it's called the Rutledge Report, and she looked into the correlations between literacy or learning disabilities amongst youth prisoners and their propensity to reoffend. And there was lots of different sort of slight interesting things, but the most interesting was those with a very low reading comprehension showed up later down the track as offending more frequently. And it's kind of, again, it's not rocket science. If you don't understand something, like if you don't get it, you don't get it. And until you actually understand something, something just doesn't occur as a piece of useful knowledge. So one of the things that we're really looking very closely now is how can we improve reading comprehension. It's not just reading comprehension. If you're doing a lot of talk and chalk type instruction and you're speaking and people don't understand you, again, people just tune out, right? And they don't learn what they need to learn. And a lot of our businesses are our prisoner employment businesses are very process-based, like we do timber processing or we run a catering operation. And one of the key findings we're discovering is prisoners are not very good at following a process. But again, I think that links back to understanding or comprehension. If you don't understand a process, of course, you're not going to follow it. A big thing we found is all the assumed knowledge that our instructors carried around with them. And I'll try and give you just one short example. Our engineering guy, again, he couldn't figure out why he would teach prisoners to cut steel to 30 mils length in the classroom, and then he'd go back out to the workshop and say, okay, now cut pieces 50 mils long. And they just get it wrong over and over again, and he had all this wastage, he couldn't figure it out. And then he worked out they had not been ever taught how to read a ruler. So it's about going back to basics. So you think about in your industry, all the assumed knowledge, you just think everyone knows, right? And the other funny story is our painting instructor recently was doing his last piece of the NCAR, and he went back and he thought, I just don't think they actually all know what a square metre looks like. And he asked the class, how many of you know what a square metre looks like? Nobody. So he measured it on the wall, showed them how to measure it, and then painted it in this big bold colour. So every time they walk in and out of the class, they're reminded that's the size. But it's painting, that's just assumed knowledge, right? Like everyone knows what a square metre is. Well, no, if you've not, learnt that somewhere along the way, you actually don't know it. And it's been a real eye-opener for our instructors because they've just been teaching through a veil of assumed knowledge, and our learners have been missing out big time. And we wonder why they have low completions. So it's been a real benefit to work that all out. But explicitly teaching or unpacking that knowledge has been a very key technique for us, is being able to take a calculation that needs working out, like how much concrete you need for a concrete slab, and unpacking the whole calculation right down to the very basics and working out what would be the consequences if you got it wrong, like you might have too much concrete in the truck or not enough, and what that, so really getting down to very much nuts and bolts. And that's been very, very powerful.